All right, well, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. It's so wonderful to have a full house this evening. We start with an invocation, which we observe by a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And next up, clerk, will you call the roll?
Corliss,
Here.
Halliburton,
Here.
Morales,
Here.
Nash, Stead,
Here.
Willett. Here. 5 present, 1 absent.
We have some minutes from August 12th for approval.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the minutes for the work session and regular meetings of August 12th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, clerk?
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willett.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thanks. And next up, we've got special business, the Youth Climate Action Council. It is awesome to have all of you here. For those of you that applied, thank you for your interest and congratulations on getting selected to be part of the council. Jenny Wolf from Public Works, oh, there you are, will provide an overview. And then after that, we'll walk through the confirmation of each of you.
Hello, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Jenny Wolf, and I serve as an education coordinator at the Watershed Climate and Education Center. I think a lot of you know the Watershed reopened in 2025 as the nation's first center dedicated to both climate and water education. And since then, we've really embraced our role in fostering community engagement around climate change, launching programs such as the Youth Climate Action Council to connect with and also learn from our community. So we are now in our 5th year, and I kind of just want to reflect on this time because I think the council has given people in Boise a platform for shaping our city's climate response. The creation of the Youth Council was included in the city's climate action roadmap as a key way to engage residents as trusted partners in tackling climate challenges. Since launching, the program has drawn over 174 applicants, engaged more than 560 students through the annual Youth Climate Action Summit, and contributed over 2,500 volunteer hours toward Boise's climate goals. So each year, YCAC members dive deep into a local climate challenge. In the fall, they meet with city departments and community partners, building out expertise. In the spring, they turn that knowledge into projects that raise awareness and inspire action. The students that we bring on with us don't just study problems, they really help to shape solutions. So one example of this is in 2022, students focused on transportation emissions. After studying land use in Boise and lack of accessible third places that didn't require a vehicle to access, they ended up transforming a vacant asphalt lot into a temporary park, which I think helped residents envision a more car-free future. In 2024, after learning about how extreme heat disproportionately affects vulnerable Boiseans, they partnered with doctors and local shelters to create and distribute more than 200 heat relief kits for Boiseans experiencing homelessness. Beyond their projects, council members also advise city leaders, and their recommendations have already shaped priorities within the climate division. Boise's recent heat monitoring survey, for example, was partly inspired by their call for a citywide heat monitoring plan. In addition to their service to the city's climate action goals, the Youth Council plans and hosts the Youth Climate Action Summit. This summit has become a staple in the community and an important place for high schoolers to build a community around sustainability and climate action. We're proud to say that the action plans created at the summits have gone on to inspire school-wide action throughout the Treasure Valley. One of our students who has actually gone on to pursue a college degree tied to sustainability reflected that seeing so many high schoolers around my age passionate about climate action and showing up to learn and play a proactive role in the climate solution was so inspiring to witness. This was especially meaningful because at the time, I was very lost on what I was interested in pursuing. But that changed after attending the summit. This is what single-handedly propelled me to get involved with climate action at my school, community, and join YCAC myself. So stories like this really remind me that the council doesn't just inspire youth, they empower them to take action. Year after year, our members prove that they aren't only on the front lines of climate impacts, but they are innovators, they're problem solvers, they bring new energy, creativity, and skills that help us to accelerate climate action. So I am proud to now introduce our co-chairs of the year who were on with us last year and we're really lucky to have back again. And that is Benny Juarez Lopez and Arya Pangarkar.
Hi everyone. My name is Arya Pangarkar,
And my name is Benny Juarez.
and we're the 2025 co-chairs of the Youth Climate Action Council. We're so excited to get to interact with this council and feel so lucky to have the opportunity to continue to work with this inspiring group of youth.
As members of the council, one of our biggest achievements was to make a community closet at 3-4 Music Festival, where we provide a free festival clothes to the concert goers in order to reduce fast fashion. We also spread education about textile waste and collected data for passerbys. This proved successful as people wanted to make it a tradition at 3-4, and those who stopped by wanted to get to the root of the problem, leading to high engagement numbers and a further spread of information.
Additionally, we hosted the annual Youth Climate Action Summit focused on ranching, agriculture, and recreation. We invited speakers from around Idaho, and along with bringing in Olivia Vesovich, one of the 16 plaintiffs of the Held v. Montana case, in which youth from Montana sued the state for a constitutional violation of their rights from the usage of fossil fuels. The attendees also participated in a networking event where they are able to learn about some of the climate-oriented careers in Boise. We ended the summit with a student-led presentation from each school around the district, complete with the climate action plan for this year. We are excited to share that last year's summit had record-breaking attendance numbers, with over 200 students, and hope to increase engagement in the upcoming year by fostering a collaborative mindset around climate change in our future.
We have another eventful year planned, starting with a team bonding experience to foster a strong relationship between the YCAC members. Soon after, we'll have 3 divisions from the city council present to us a situationship about a problem so we can figure out a solution and present this to our city Boise community.
As federal support for climate action changes, local action has become increasingly important. It is essential to engage Boiseans with these actions to become involved in this ever-pressing issue in order to not only help their community now, but also for the future. We also want to congratulate our fellow cohort for stepping into this brave role amidst a time of uncertainty surrounding climate action.
To wrap this up, we would like to give a thank you to Augie Gabrielli and Jenny Wolf for showing up every single week and helping us to construct this new generation of YCAC to make an impact in our community. Additionally, thank you to Mayor McLean for helping us make this happen. And we all gonna love this.
All right, thank you for the overview, and to our co-chairs, thanks for coming back. You spent a lot of time last year. It was fun to see you outside, and I realized when I saw you that you must be the co-chairs because you were back. You spent a lot of time last year, and you're giving more this year to help the council move forward, so really appreciate it. Okay, so now I'm going to move forward the confirmation of everyone all at once. But as I say your name, would you please stand up so that we'll hold applause till the end, but that way we can put a face to a name and congratulate you. And with that, all of these students who I'm about to name, I'm proposing be confirmed to the Youth Climate Action Council for a term that ends June 30th, 2026. Addie Tripathi. Addie. Sam Gallifant. Sam. Charlotte Meng. Charlotte. Xander Barnes. Wonderful. Zoe Robinson. Youngchun Chang. Cecilia Lujan, Taylor Schwartz, Susanna Biggs, Estella Tapias, Abby Wallace, Vera Brooks, Kaylee Sims, Steffi Brioso, Benny Juarez Lopez, and Arya Kangarkar. Thank you all very much. And congratulations. And with that, feel free to take a seat and then the council will take some action and have some remarks.
Madam Mayor, I move approval. I ask unanimous consent for the appointments of the Youth Climate Action Council as presented.
Without objection. Alrighty, you guys are official. Congratulations.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Maybe there's a couple of council members that might want to say a few words. My name's Jimmy Halliburton. I'm one of your Boise City Council members. I had a chance to meet a few of you just out on the plaza a second ago. But I want to thank you for being part of this team. You just got voted in, so you're actually officially a part of the city of Boise. And the city of Boise is a big team with a lot of different departments and a lot of different people working here. And this is such a great department for not just our public works department and our climate division to be learning from you, but from the entire city. And I know that that's maybe a lot to hear, but I hope that you take that responsibility seriously, because I want you to know that there's people who are listening to what you have to say. The city recently launched a youth climate roadmap, or just a youth roadmap for the city. It's an initiative to help us see the issues that we're dealing with through the lens of youth. And when I think about it, my goals are always to make sure that youth can grow, thrive, and maybe most importantly, figure out ways to have an impact on the community around them. And I think you all are in a really, really unique position where you can have an impact on this community through your work this year and the following years. Even later in this city council meeting, we're going to be approving $50,000 for new trees that are going to be planted around the city. And the location of those trees are impacted by some of the work that our youth climate action team has done before, identifying the heat maps. And so the things that you've done before in the past continue to have an impact on the decisions that we make up here today. And I think that that's really exciting, that the work that you're going to do will have a permanent impact on the way that the city operates and the way that our community members live here going forward. And so I want to thank you for taking on that responsibility, for jumping into these positions, for the work ahead. And I hope that there's lots of opportunities for you to share that with council throughout the process, so that we can be learning from you in that process and making decisions based off of what you're learning every step of the way. So thank you.
All right. You guys are welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to leave and celebrate with your families and friends. So thanks for taking the time. Really look forward to jumping into a couple meetings this year, attending the Youth Climate Action Summit at the end, learning about the project that you decided to take on. I got to tell you, our staff see this as like a real competition. They love getting selected by our Climate Action Council and then working alongside you. So look forward to seeing the project that you choose to work on and following throughout the year and then looking at the results at the end. And congratulations, everybody. Thanks for coming in.
Madam Mayor. No, we just noticed it when we don't have.
Great.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Before I open up to discussion, I just want to flag on here, there's quite a few items on the agenda tonight related to the financial closing and the documents around that for Dorado Station, which is another public-private partnership on city-owned land. It's a housing land trust project in partnership with J. Fisher Companies to develop affordable housing in Boise, some more homes for Boiseans. And of the homes in this, 10% will be dedicated to families exiting homelessness. as they have done at the Franklin. And as we celebrated this morning with Pacific Companies and the Secretary of HUD and Senator Crapo at Wilson Station, another land trust property that has homes at Boise budgets with homes for folks exiting homelessness. So excited to see this move forward. And we can continue meeting our goal of homes for Boiseans. We're completing about 300 affordable homes this year alone, and we expect another 200 to open next year. And all of these are the results of innovative, collaborative public-private partnerships.
Yep, Madam Mayor, maybe a couple more comments here. One, I just want to second the comments that you just made. It was really exciting to be at the Cutting for Wilson Station today and then to see this on the agenda. To know that the work that we're doing to create affordable housing solutions for our community members got completed at one spot today and has a brand new start coming up at a new location, and that process continues. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and I don't know if we have any staff here who worked on this particular one, is just item number 9, which is the tree purchases from our forestry department for the Elaine Clegg City of Trees Challenge. So I'm going to channel my inner Elaine Clegg here tonight. And thank you to the staff who've been part of that project. This is an opportunity for us to plant trees all over the city of Boise. And as you heard from my statements with our youth that were here a second ago, some of that's impacted by where we have heat islands across the city. And our youth helped us identify some of those islands. And now we'll be doing free tree planting for anyone in the community. They can go down there and apply for it and get a tree and plant it in their yard and save some of these heat island effects. And a lot of this has to do with Elaine's work and our forestry department's work, but also some of our developers' work as well, because as you're putting in these developers now, some of to come in not only with the baseline level of trees, but even more trees than we might require. And it all adds up and it makes a difference there. So I want to just give a shout out to Elaine Clegg for the City Trees Challenge and our forestry department for pushing this through.
Alrighty, clerk.
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And now we'll move on to second reading.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on the second reading calendar be read by number and title only and filed for the third reading calendar.
Without objection.
ORD 28-25, an ordinance amending Title IX, Chapter 2 of Boise City Code. This amendment updates the development impact fees per service unit and related schedule of development impact fees and provides an effective date of October 1, 2025. ORD 29-25, an ordinance entitled the Annual Appropriation Ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2025, appropriating $1,519,120,346 deemed necessary to defray all expenses and liabilities of the city of Boise City, Idaho for said fiscal year, specifying the objects and purposes for which said appropriation is made, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, authorizing the levy of a sufficient tax upon the taxable property, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. We've got nothing on third reading, so I'm going to move into the public hearing portion of the evening. Do we have anybody online for the public hearings? No? Okay. We've got quite a few, but right now we don't have many members of the public signed up for any of these. So I just want to go through and just ask a couple questions so we get a sense of who's here. So first we've got, it looks like a city application, the CPACE program. You don't need to get up yet, Bree. Is anybody here to testify on that? Okay. The number 2, SUB 2541, the Abracadabra subdivision, is the applicant here? Doug Exton? Zach? Great. Is anybody here to testify on this item? Okay. How about number 3, ZOA 25-4? That's David Mosier. I'm sorry, I was reading staff names rather than yours, Zach. Catherine Sewell? Or no, but you're the applicant with, are you platform architecture? Gotcha. Okay. Is anybody here to testify on that? We don't have the neighborhood associations either because nobody's online. And number 4, Rodney Evans. Anybody here to testify on that? Okay. And then number 5, KM Engineering. Wonderful. Welcome. Anybody else? So I've got 2 people for one of these, the CPACE program, Greg Olson and Matthew Scott. They might have just been in here for something else and signed up for the wrong thing. Okay. I'm asking because given the number that we have, we're going to try to roll through these as efficiently as possible. And I'll just check in, see if there are things you're in agreement with. If there's anything you need to discuss, we'll open it for questions, open the hearing, and then move from there. That sounds good. Bree, come on up for CPACE.
All right. Madam Mayor, council members, Bree Brush, I am here before you this evening to discuss the proposed CPACE program for the city of Boise. I'm joined by Katie O'Neill, our energy program manager in Public Works. First, I'll start by telling you what CPACE stands for, and then I'll talk a little bit about what it is, what it's used for, and how it came to be in Idaho. CPACE stands for Commercial Property Assessed Capital Expenditure. It is a financing structure in which commercial building owners borrow money for energy and water related efficiency projects, and they make the repayments via an assessment on their property tax bill. There's transitions there. That was a surprise. Okay. CPACE was enabled by the Idaho legislature in the 2024 legislative session. There are more than 33 states who have similar enabling legislation. So House Bill 624 set up the parameters for which local units of government in Idaho can establish a program and allow this mechanism to be utilized in their communities. It's done through a voluntary lien on the property and repaid through the property tax. There is no cost to the public for enacting these programs, and it's already been enabled in Coeur d'Alene, Rexburg, and Blaine County. We will establish application fees to recoup some of the cost of administration for the projects. Examples of qualifying projects include energy efficiency that is aimed to be above and beyond city and state building standards. So we're trying to incentivize that desirable behavior in the building and recoup some cost savings for developers who choose to do this, decrease water consumption or demand of drinking water, meet and any improvements that meet or exceed resiliency standards in the building's envelope. And I'll show an example of that in just a moment. The first ever CPACE project in Idaho closed earlier this year in Rexburg. It was Madison Station, a 350-unit multifamily housing complex. And the CPACE financing was $15 million to fund the building envelope, including the roofing, windows, insulation, lighting, water conservation measures, boiler, and HVAC. So those were improvements above and beyond the building codes for this area. Finally, looking at the timeline that we've followed here for our proposed program, on July 8th, City Council passed a resolution of intent. On the 9th, we had a website with more information available for developers. Katie has been conducting outreach with prospective applicants and learning about prospective projects. Today, we're here for a public hearing and your consideration of Resolution 41425. And if approved, we will begin accepting applications effective immediately. I am happy to stand for any questions.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Bree, thank you so much. A couple of questions. What is the expectation in terms of how many folks would take advantage of this?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willits, it's hard to say. It is a very specialized financing tool, and it will make sense for developers who are looking for some kind of gap financing. Perhaps it completes the capital stack on specific projects, but it's hard to know. Other communities have seen 1 to 2 applicants so far, the ones that have implemented in Idaho, and they've implemented it maybe since last fall.
Madam Mayor, one thought. Can you walk us through the financing? I know that there's an element of it where they have to pay it back through the assessors. Walk us through that.
Sure. Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willits, we are not a party to the transaction. We are simply saying that their application meets the standards that we have set out. It contains these components. It is on the developer's plate to work with a capital provider and come up with the terms for that. And then we are simply saying, yes, this meets the standards set by code, and we file the voluntary lien on their behalf.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Bree touched on it briefly when it talked about thermal, but I'm wondering how this could interplay with any geothermal needs that we might have in the city, infrastructure wise.
Madam Mayor, Council President, I don't know. Do you want to try to answer that?
Madam Mayor, council member, it could play into buildings that are not city-owned buildings. The city government buildings are not eligible for this type of financing, but nonprofits and other commercial buildings are. And I believe geothermal would be included in the eligibility requirements for this type of financing.
And do we think those improvements would need to be like internal to like the building, or could they be to bring energy, like geothermal energy, to a building,
Like extend the system.
like extend the system?
Councilmember, Madam Mayor, it depends. The financing can only apply to something that is permanent to the building. So we would have to look into the actual legislation on that, but it's possible.
Other questions? All right, thanks. I'll now open up to the public. Is anybody here to testify on this? All right, with that, I'll close it. And this matter is before council.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of RES 1425.
Second.
We have a motion and second discussion. Clerk?
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willis.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you both. Appreciate it. All right, now we'll move on to the Abracadabra subdivision. We've got Doug Exton. And then Zach, I'll see if you're in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report. If you are, the council might have questions for you. If not, we'll open it up and then probably take action.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. Before you tonight is SUB 2541. Preliminary plat for residential subdivision of 2.01 acres located at 915 North Shamrock Street. Project is in Council District 1. The proposed subdivision consists of 17 buildable and 3 common lots, all of which comply with the dimensional standards and code and is supported by various policies within the comprehensive plan. The lots will take access off of a new public street, which will be extended when the property to the west redevelops. The proposal includes a public access point to the future park site located to the south as shown on the screen. In conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval and the planning team aligns with that. And I'd be happy to stand with any questions.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions?
Yep, and very quick question. So this has come before us, I believe, in the past. I remember a lot of conversations about the ability for fire to turn around until that additional connection on the road was built. Is there anything that's different here than the original hearing that we had?
Madam or Councilmember Halliburton, with this, the main difference is when it came before you all in 2022, it was part of a planned residential development. So the main component there that was unique as part of the PUD was there was a 3-foot interior yard setback. That has since expired as well as the original subdivision. So the lots today that are proposed don't have any reduced setbacks as part of them. The street network is still the exact same as the most recent subdivision that was approved on site.
Great.
So the turnaround is compliant with the fire code or the fire department.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I remember this actually being an abnormally long hearing for like a relatively small subdivision, but it seems like we got a lot of that stuff figured out that time around, and this time around, everything is already kind of settled up and baked in. Cool.
Any further questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Doug, could you please show me on the other screen how these public access, is it just the blue area that's the public access easement? And has there been any consideration for connection to the park for other properties to the west of here that might have access point from kind of like the Mesquite Street area? Or are we just like considering that if the other property to the west is developed? Like, I'm just trying to figure out what consideration to the west here have we thought about access to the park?
Madam Mayor, Council President Nash, at this time, since that property isn't part of this application, there hasn't been any formal plans for public access, bringing it down from Mesquite all the way into that future park. However, I imagine at time of redevelopment, that would be a consideration of the property for sure.
Doug, is there anything in ACHD's plan that would allow, I mean, I assume that these Driftwood Drive and then the street to the north of the property to the west, I don't know what that street is, that abuts Mesquite Street. Is there any planned connections between these two streets that might inform what access to a future park here might be like?
At this time, no, there is a planned pathway south of the future park that will link up into Shamrock Street. But at this time, there are no road network plans considered for the property to the west, but they would be reviewed at time of redevelopment.
Okay.
Anything further? All right, thanks. So I will ask the applicant, are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Let the record reflect they are. Anything you need to add? Okay, all right. With that, I'll see if anybody else wants to testify on this item. Any further questions for staff? Okay, let's go ahead and close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of SUP 24-47, a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 17 buildable and 3 common lots located at 915 North Shamrock Street on 2.01 acres in an R1C zone.
Second.
We have motion and second discussion.
Madam Mayor, just I'll be voting in favor of this. Welcome to West Boise. We've seen this before. This is a great infill development. I know this area well. Very excited to see more families and folks into West Boise and can't wait to see them. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, abracadabra subdivision going next to Shamrock site. A lot of good luck and magic going on in this area, but the biggest thing is definitely excited for those families and those individuals to be able to call these homes.
Thank you, clerk.
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willet.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right. Now we'll move to ZOA 25-4. David Mosier's here with us. The applicant will check in with you after the staff asks questions of the applicant or the council asks questions of the staff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The applicant is requesting a zoning ordinance amendment to modify the Barber Valley specific plan of the Boise City Code to include live-work units as an allowed use within the SPO2 OC and SPO2 OMR Barber Valley specific plan subdistricts. This amendment would allow for live-work residential uses within these two subdistricts of the Barber Valley specific plan by amending Table 11.7.8 and increasing the maximum dwelling unit per acre to 1 for SPO2 OC subdistrict. The aerial photograph here shows the general area of the specific plan impacted by the proposed change, and the hatched area on this map is basically where the first of the live work units will occur. This slide shows the breakout of the different subdistricts within the main section of the Barber Valley specific plan. Please note that the OMR subdistrict is generally located along the Barber Valley Drive and includes the apartments and townhomes to the southwest of the development shown here in orange, and the OC subdistrict is located around the perimeter of the area in the large parcel along Warm Springs. This includes more commercial uses and is shown here in red. In particular, the first change includes adjusting the allowed use table 11-07.8 to add live work use as an allowed use within the ORM and OC subdistricts as highlighted blue on this table. The table shown here includes the list of residential uses only from the specific plan. In addition, I would note that the Barber Valley specific plan does not include any specific details on design standards, for example, open space and landscape buffers, and it mainly relies upon the Boise City Development Code requirements for these design criteria. However, the Barber Valley or the Barber Station CCNRs did include more specific criteria for this particular use. The second major change request is to adjust Table 11.7.9 to change the maximum density of the OC subdistrict from 0 to 1. Basically, this would allow at least one live work unit per parcel within that subdistrict. In conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of ZOA 25-00004 and finds that it complies with the required findings. And here are the required findings for a reminder and reference. Thank you.
Questions for staff?
David, yesterday downtown, I saw a guy that could have been your brother wearing a really slick Indiana Jones hat. You know anything about that?
Madam Mayor, member of the council, probably not my brother, he's in California, but I appreciate his style and hats.
All right. That was a good answer. Do you have anything to add? Okay. Is anybody here to testify on this item? Nope. All right. I'm going to close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of ZOA 25-4, a zoning ordinance amendment to allow live work units within the SP 2-OC mixed use office and commercial and SPO2 OMR Barber Valley specific plan subdistricts and adopt the reason statement as presented in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
Madam Mayor.
Yep.
I just think that this really fits into our comprehensive plan of having a mix of housing types in different neighborhoods. And we've got some similar ones to this in the sort of 36th Street bistro area where there are some live work conditions, and it's great. I think it really creates some opportunities for some creative and innovative types of businesses and people who can, start something small and grow it to something bigger. And so I'm glad that we're doing it here. And I hope it's something that we can experiment on and see in other parts of the city as well, because I do think it really leads to that mix of housing types and the ability to create unique amenities in a neighborhood that might not have them otherwise. So thanks for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Clerk.
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willis.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, we're going to move on to CPA 25-2, CAR 25-4, Rodney Evans. David's up again. We'll go through the same process.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the council. The applicant requests a comprehensive plan amendment to change the land use designation from industrial to suburban and a rezone of approximately 3.99 acres from R1A AIO, which is a residential large lot within the airport influence area, to R1C AIO, which is residential traditional within the airport influence area. In addition, a preliminary plat subdivision comprised of 19 buildable, 2 common lots was included. These applications were heard before the Planning and Zoning Commission on June 9th, and they approved a conditional use for the project to exceed the airport density limit of 5 units per acre and they approved the proposed sidewalk variance. As such, the project will have a density of 5.01 units per acre. And adjacent to the south and west of the subject property is Maple Grove Elementary School and Molinar Park, respectively. And Maple Grove Road abuts the property to the west and contains a level 1 bikeway and a bus route number 28. And there's a bus stop about 200 feet to the south. As seen on this slide, the R1A zone with a land use designation of industrial is what's currently on the site, which would not accommodate the proposed development and is not consistent, or the land use designation is not consistent with the existing residential uses on site. Therefore, the applicant is proposing to change the land use designation to suburban and rezone the parcel to R1C. The suburban land use designation is intended to support densities from 3 to 5 units per acre, which matches the anticipated density of the project. In addition, the site is physically separated from the industrial uses adjacent to the east by an irrigation ditch. The proposed suburban land use designation and the R1C zone are appropriate for the site and the surrounding neighborhood, since the ditch will create a natural divide between the proposed residential uses and the industrial development to the east, and also increase density along arterial roadways near a public school, Maple Grove Elementary, and a public park, Molinar Park, is supported by various policies of the comprehensive plan. This slide shows the subdivision layout and landscape plan. The subject property currently consists of 2 separate parcels and contains an existing house and several outbuildings. The applicant proposes to adjust the property line to locate the existing single-family house on its own half-acre parcel with a record of survey for a property line adjustment. And as such, the half-acre parcel containing the house will not be located within the proposed subdivision. The record of survey will also require the large shop and outbuildings be removed or comply with setbacks, and that the current access point on the Maple Grove Road will be closed. The subdivision is comprised of 19 buildable, 2 common lots with a public street connection to Maple Grove. The public street and subdivision design includes a stub street to the north with a hammerhead turnaround on the east side of the property. Detached sidewalks are proposed along the north section of Maple Grove Road and interior to the development, except where the sidewalk is adjacent to the hammerhead. However, ASHD has requested a cul-de-sac design instead of this turnaround. The subdivision design will comply with the lot size and other dimensional standards of the proposed R1C zone. The project design includes a 30-foot wide landscape buffer along Maple Grove Road, which contains a 10-foot wide detached sidewalk abutting the subdivision. The project design also has a large open common lot on the east side of the site with a 6-foot wide pathway connecting with a connection to the public adjacent school to the south. A recommended condition of approval requires a stub street to the north, Wilshire Avenue, be moved about 56 feet to the west and trade places with Lot 5, Block 1. This would allow adjacent properties to the north opportunities to redevelop to a better subdivision design and provide increased connectivity. However, there was a design conflict with the existing irrigation infrastructure on site, which cannot be relocated, and ACHD prohibits irrigation infrastructure from being located in public streets. As such, the planning team recommends condition of approval number 4 be removed due to this conflict. In summary, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the comprehensive plan amendment, the rezone, and the subdivision. And for reference, although it's a lot small, but there's many approval criteria, but if for reference, these are the approval criteria for the two applications. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
When I first saw this, David, if you would have said there's property being developed next to an elementary school, next to a park, next to a bus stop, I wouldn't have guessed it was Maple Grove and Victory. Can you walk me through why the R1C designation is appropriate here? I would imagine like having a property that closely located to that infrastructure, it's very attractive. Are there limitations with the airport overlay that would prohibit us from making a more dense development here? Walk me through the consideration of an R1C. Is this just what was proposed, or is this what was recommended?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the R1C was proposed by the applicant and is consistent with the suburban land use designation adjacent to the site to the west. It's also more consistent with the industrial uses that are adjacent to the east as well, as opposed to more dense. Theoretically, we could, get something a little bit higher density in here. It is on Maple Grove Road. There is an infrastructure. There is bus routes, that type of support. But really, I think the more dense thing that really limits this is the airport influence, which limits the 5 units an acre. They gained a conditional use approval to just exceed that, but to exceed it more would have been more difficult. The airport was okay with going to 5.01 density, but I think they would have had objections if we tried to get something substantially more dense.
Okay. Other question on here, David. Could you go to the maps or the yes, so on the pathway on the east side, the one in red, on one map the pathway was straight, on the other it's curved. Do you know which one is more accurate?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I think I did probably the straight one's probably more accurate. I did ask the applicant to adjust that to take the meander out of it if all possible. So this might be just an older map that I used for this figure.
And is there a public easement on that pathway?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, we would require a public easement be recorded over that pathway.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor. Hey, thank you. When you talk about difficulty getting a CUP for more than what they got for, can you talk about what that difficulty would have meant for this application process? Would we, if they had wanted to go to a higher density, would they still be here tonight? Same timeline. They just wouldn't have had the airport's blessing. They would have had to get through planning and zoning. It would be coming to us to be approved for higher density. Can you talk about specifically what that difficulty would have been?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the project was proposed by the applicant. So what we're seeing is what they proposed. To go for a higher density, they would still have to go through a conditional use permit to exceed it. That would have required approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The staff would have to planning team would have to take a closer look at that point. I don't know if the airport would have written a letter of support if it was substantially higher. And then at that point, those airport's comments would have definitely had an influence on the Planning and Zoning Commission and how they would have viewed this.
Thank you. And it's possible to expect that perhaps planning and zoning denies it, and then that delays with the appeal process. So there could be, if they wanted to go higher, there would have been significant time adjustment, things that could have cost this project time or money.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, that is correct.
Madam Mayor. David, thanks so much for presenting this to us. I appreciate that this project's looking to move from industrial to residential. I just have one question. If you can walk me through the roadway, the Wilshire Avenue, and which one's going to be staying?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, what's going to stay is what was originally proposed. So the plat as shown is what will stay. The brown is where I was suggesting it be moved to.
Okay.
Here. But unfortunately, it located that irrigation box right in the middle of the public road, which is prohibited by SHD. So it could not go there. And that irrigation box is required to deliver water to the neighbor, and their infrastructure is right across that way. So it cannot be relocated.
Madam Mayor and David, on the property that's next to it, I know we talked about making it for a future street extension, but that's not currently a street today. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, members of council, no,
right.
that's not a current street today. That's just a single family house. I was just projecting out what that could possibly look like if it redevelops in the future.
Okay. And Madam Mayor, one more follow-up, David. There is a lot of industrial in this area that's not developed. Do you see this pattern continuing from going from industrial to residential? Have you gotten outreach from the public there?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I could foresee that the properties to the north could potentially redevelop to a residential use. Since they're adjacent to Maple Grove Road, it's kind of that natural boundary, and be that sort of transition between Maple Grove and the industrial industrial developments to the east. The reason being that is because there are the infrastructure, the bus routes, the higher density, or bus routes, the bike routes, the parks are along Maple Grove. Plus, if they went industrial as the land use designation, then we potentially could have industrial traffic pulling directly out onto Maple Grove Road instead of, in residential, which is probably not necessarily ideal either. So I can see the properties directly on abutting Maple Grove continuing this process going in the future, but nothing further east in this.
Right. One more follow-up, David, is I love the pathway that we have here connecting back to Maple Grove School in the back. And I just want to assure, and that's an access to the side of Maple Grove or to the back? And was that kind of approved with the independent school district in Maple Grove?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, it will connect into the back of their playground area. The applicant did coordinate with the school district. They are aware of it, and the school district is okay, but they will control the access to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
do you know in the process is there any discussion with ACHD as far as crossing goes to the other side of the street? I'm just thinking about the coolest skate park in Boise and all these kids that are going to be living, in this house, and their likelihood of walking down to the school crosswalk. We kind of ran into something similar to this in Primrose Park recently, kind of wishing that we would have coordinated some infrastructure. So I'm curious if ACHD has mentioned any future planning for any crosswalks or infrastructure for getting across the street on Maple Grove.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I do not think they mentioned any additional crosswalks. I think there is some just to the south in front of the school, but I don't believe their staff report mentioned anything additional.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little challenging, like looking at a Google map and judging like how far it is down to that next crosswalk versus what it is up there. I guess maybe one thing, potentially to think about would just be if there are future plans, even if the crosswalk isn't going to be constructed by the applicant, about thinking what those curb cuts or something might look like. But it doesn't sound like conversations with ACHD have dictated, any plans for anything thus far.
Madam Mayor, members of council, that is correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
David, last one, if I could, Madam Mayor. Have we taken into consideration potential widening of Maple Grove Road in the setbacks at the east side of this or west side of this property?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, usually when the Highway District writes reports, they will request dedication. I think this area or this section was just improved, like the sidewalks are all recently fairly improved, and they didn't require any additional dedication at this point. That being said, the subdivision itself does have a 30-foot landscape buffer that theoretically, if they did widen it, it would cut into the landscape buffer and not necessarily into somebody's side yard. And then the house to the south, obviously when it redevelops, it'll have to be, it'll have to come through the same type of process, and we can take a look at it at that time.
Madam Mayor, I think Edison might have popped up online.
Yeah, would you like to ask him a question?
Edison, did you have anything to add to that?
Madam Mayor, Council Member, certainly, just to clarify, Maple Grove has, current long-range planning. We have identified has a 5-lane roadway, which is currently today. So that's the maximum extent that it will reach according to our current plans. So, the right-of-way that was detailed in the current staff report, that's pretty much the max amount that we would require for this application.
All right. Applicant, do you want to add anything, answer anything? Okay. Other questions for the applicant? Yep. Yeah.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Kind of going back to the airport influence overlay questions, how much did that factor into the planning for this project?
Madam Mayor, council members, yeah, I mean, it was, first of all, my client is Hayden Homes. So their business is to build, single family residential homes here. When they purchased it, the desire was to get as many single family homes in there as we could, in discussions with the city staff, as well as some back and forth with the airport. We needed to stay as close to that 5 as we could, and still meet the size requirements for Hayden to build the homes that they're projecting on the property. So, yeah, I mean, it was pretty big in that.
Madam Mayor, follow up. So was there ever any thoughts to how much density the site could have seen, or did you kind of cut through that and just go straight to the 5 units per acre?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, council members, we really didn't explore. Hayden doesn't build multifamily structures here. I know there was a precedent of another project that had come through that had requested pretty substantial increase in density within that airport area. I think that they found a happy medium somewhere in what they proposed and what the airport wanted. Again, my client, their business is building single family homes. It's really what they wanted to do. So we didn't really explore a higher density.
Other questions?
Yeah, Madam Mayor. Ben, good to see you. I was looking at this project earlier, and then it made me go back and look at the Pathways Master Plan just to see kind of where it fit on this. And it doesn't actually call for anything on this particular lot, but just one lot above is sort of where we show a future pathway with I think it's the 5 Mile Creek Canal, which I think that you're familiar with, because we've made you put some pathways in there before in the past. So one, I want to say I appreciate you putting in this pathway along the small irrigation ditch and connecting it to the school. My neighborhood is very similar that way, and it's great to have that little access. I'm wondering if you did consider extending it further along the outside and kind of along the irrigation ditch, because it kind of, when it pops out on Maple Grove, it sort of like almost aligns with some of the pathway that goes around the Molinar Park. And so I'm just wondering if there was any consideration there.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, we didn't look at that pathway continuing along the west side. I think the east side. I think our concern was that there would be a pretty large separation from the public right of way and sidewalk to an area behind some homes that was bordered by an industrial area that really doesn't have people there all the time. So kind of a safety issue. These will be public streets, so the sidewalks will be, be public right of way. So that pathway will tie into that. With the Welshire extension to the north, I think that pathway could pick back up along that canal and pop out in the right spot.
Great. Yeah. Again, I appreciate the section that you put in there. Just, whenever you see a little canal running through, it triggers something in my head at this point. There was a comment that was made earlier, I think, about the turnaround at the end and whether or not that was going to have to be turned into a cul-de-sac. And I couldn't quite figure out where that landed.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, we did get approval from Boise Fire for the hammerhead design. The civil engineer also designed that hammerhead to meet all the turning radii for ACHD's maintenance vehicles. So we have approval to install this as a hammerhead turnaround. ACHD staff report and the city of Boise staff report kind of basically say, work it out, and we'll approve something. The planning staff with ACHD effectively told us that the engineering text during the review would bring up anything of concern. Our concern is that a cul-de-sac here eliminates at least one buildable lot, if not two. And I know that, we need housing here versus a larger expanse of asphalt.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation on that. And in my, view, like if the fire department is approving a turnaround there and it works for those other vehicles and we're able to squeeze something else in, then, hopefully that is something that can be worked out. I'll ask you the same question. If there was any conversations with ACHD as far as connection to the park, any sort of future crosswalks or anything like that, do you know if anything is in the works or plan there?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, no, we haven't. They didn't request any crossing here. There is a crossing fairly close to the south there. I know that there's also a subdivision on the north side of Molinar Park on the west side of Maple Grove. And I don't believe they had a crossing there either. They didn't bring it up. I think it was just too close in proximity to
that other one.
The other crossings. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is anybody here for this item? Just want to confirm that nobody is. Nope. All right, I'm gonna go ahead. Is there anything further for staff? I'll close the hearing.
Madam Mayor, move approval of CPA 25-2, CAR 25-4, and SUB 25-13, a comprehensive plan amendment to change the land use designation from industrial to suburban, a rezone of approximately 3.9 acres located at 2626 and 2680 South Maple Grove Road from R1A AIO, residential traditional with airport influence overlay, and a preliminary plat for 19 buildable and 2 common lots, and adopt the reason statement as presented in the staff report. And David, could you put that condition back up? And remove condition of approval number 4, which required the Welsher Avenue be adjusted to the west.
Second.
We have a motion and second discussion?
Yeah, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
One, just Ben, thanks for bringing another good development in front of us here. Thanks for the work on that pathway. Even those small little connections, I think, make a really big difference. And for people to be able to walk after hours right into the playground, or for kids to be able to walk straight to school there. I do think that there's something maybe for staff, just sort of a flagging thing, and with ACHD online as well. I think I get a little concerned anytime that I get really excited, I should say, anytime that we build a neighborhood right next to a park. It's the perfect place to put a neighborhood. I also do sometimes have concerns of, like, if we're going to be putting in a neighborhood, like, is this the perfect time to also be evaluating a crosswalk or an additional way for people to get across the road? And I do realize that there's one a little bit further down there with the school. But I think about the amount of kids that might be crossing from one side to the other. And as we see development further down the road, and whether there's a crosswalk planned in the immediate future or not, if we're going to be putting in a sidewalk, it might be an opportunity just to think about creating a curb cut for a future plan. And so that might just be something I think for staff to flag in the future, if we can coordinate with ACHD, especially when we're looking at a neighborhood next to a school or a park where we know those kids may not want to walk that extra 100, 200 yards down the road, maybe some future planning that could reduce some cost. So just something to put on the radar.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Just a comment, kind of alluding to the questions that were asked. The project on Maple Grove that went through the CUP process was about double the acreage and about 174 units, if I recall correctly. And so thinking about how many homes that provides, and just kind of thinking about this site next to a park and a school, I'm grateful for the homes that are being built here, and good to kind of hear the back end in terms of the developer that's doing this. This is kind of their bread and butter. But I think this kind of plays into that larger picture as we look at that area of influence to understand the types of development that we're limiting or encouraging in an area that has a lot of great resources.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben, for bringing this forward, and thankful for Hayden Homes for putting this development together. One, I'm really excited. This is in District 3, and there is a lot of industrial land here. And as I go by it, I'm always just cringe a little bit thinking it's industrial, because it is a great area for residential use. So I'm really happy to see this come forward. As everyone had mentioned before, wonderful location next to Maple Grove Elementary School, right across from Molinar Park. That park is very busy all the time. Kids just love it there. People walking their dogs, playing soccer. We could probably use another park similar in the area to support all these kids and the developments. And I did want to call out that while I appreciate multifamily home, I'm excited and encouraged to see the development of single family homes also. I hear from so many people, younger people and older people alike, who want to get into owning a home. And this is a great infill and a great opportunity to bring more housing stock of homes to the market for people to purchase. So I'll be happy to support this development. Thank you.
Wonderful. Clerk?
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right, thank you. And now we've got Jesse Lyle as staff member. Welcome up, Jesse, for the final item. Are folks here to testify on this one? This is Bogart Lane. You guys here for this? You are? Okay, great. And you're I'm talking people behind you. I think, are you Greg Olson? Great. Okay, that's I just was on a different sheet. I had called you earlier to see if you were here for something. Okay, so we'll hear from staff, then the applicant. We'll ask questions. We'll open up to the public. Take them there.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. The item before you is CAR 2510 and SUB 2525. This is a request to annex approximately 12 acres, including the subject property and adjacent rights of way with a zoning designation of R1C HSO, generally located at 8750 Bogart Lane. Also included is a preliminary plat for a subdivision comprised of 8 common and 41 buildable lots. This project is located in Council District 6. Excuse me. The subject property is currently zoned RUT within unincorporated Ada County and within Boise's area of city impact. The parcel abuts Boise city limits on the east, south, and west sides, and the property is designated suburban on the future land use map, as are parcels to the east and west, while parcels to the south and southeast are designated compact. There's a small area of the subject property north of Hill Road within the hillside and buoy overlays. However, this parcel is proposed as a common lot and will not be buildable. The proposed R1C zoning is allowed within the suburban land use designation and would allow the property to develop with a similar density and lot sizes relative to adjacent subdivisions to the east, south, and west. The developable area of the subject property is approximately 8 acres with a density of just under 5 units per acre. However, about 1.7 acres of the total property contains existing roadways. Lot 1, Block 1 north of Hill Road is approximately 1/2 an acre and not buildable, and Lot 1, Block 2, which contains the existing home, will be approximately 2 acres in size and will likely redevelop sometime in the future. All proposed lots will front internal to the subdivision and will meet all standards of the R1C zone. The proposal will connect with the existing stub of Sundish Street and provide an additional future east-west connection by stubbing Bismarck Street. A condition of approval will require a stub street to the north from Spitfire Avenue, and ACHD and the Planning and Zoning Commission have indicated they are supportive of this condition. While there are some topographical concerns along Hill Road, the area where the stub could connect is more gradual topographical change than the area to the east, as you can see in that pop out. Detached 5-foot sidewalks are provided internal to the subdivision, and there's a common drive giving access to lots 6, 7, and 8. Within the condition of approval will require the pedestrian connection on the west side to provide direct connection to those lots without having to cross the common drive. On the perimeter of the site, a condition of approval will require 10-foot detached sidewalk along Hill Road Parkway, as it is a minor arterial roadway. There's also a future roundabout identified on ACHD's master street map plan, and the applicant is dedicating right-of-way to accommodate the future construction. Attached 5-foot sidewalks are proposed along the south side of Hill Road, and an easement for a future pathway will be provided along the north side of Hill Road. The applicant is proposing to jog an approximately 30-foot section of sidewalk along Bogart Lane. At the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, this proposal was discussed, and the commission was not supportive of this proposal as it would interrupt an approximately 700-foot stretch of detached sidewalk in order to save one conifer tree. While typically tree retention is a goal of the city, the proposed jog would likely impact pedestrians for a greater length of time than the retention of this tree. And additionally, there's are concerns with retaining conifers near WUI areas as they can present fire safety risk.
Madam Mayor, while we're on that slide, I guess I'm confused here. So the two trees that we're looking at is just where that green line is.
Madam Mayor, council members, yes, so the tree on the northern side of that green line would be the one that would be impacted by continuing a detached sidewalk. The other tree, the root structure should be able to be maintained even with a detached sidewalk.
Yeah, so my question here is like, in my mind, I'm having a really hard time understanding how that's 700 feet and not like 20 feet.
Madam Mayor, council members, so the Bogart Lane that runs north-south, that whole stretch is 700 feet of sidewalk. This jog is about 30 feet.
Okay, so it would be it'd be 700 feet of detached sidewalk minus 30 feet if they went around the tree.
Madam Mayor,
Or
council
just
members,
that
that's
one section.
correct.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
An updated landscape and tree mitigation plan was submitted indicating the applicant is proposing to remove 18 trees throughout the site while retaining 24 trees and relocating 2. A tree mitigation plan was submitted indicating the trees to be removed are in poor health and do not require mitigation. Currently, there are no street trees proposed along Hill Road, and a condition of approval will require the planting of 1 tree for every 40 lineal feet on the south side of the proposed sidewalk. Since the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing and our risk report was submitted, however, it has not yet been reviewed by the Parks Department. If there are any changes in mitigation requirements, this would not change any characteristics of the site and would be addressed with the final plat. The Northwest Neighborhood Association also submitted comments as summarized on the screen. General concerns include the timing of the construction of the roundabout at Hill Road Parkway and Bogart Lane. Currently, a reconstruction project for this section of Hill Road Parkway is identified in the capital improvement plan for the 2031 to 2035 period. Additional concerns include the request for additional class 3 trees, potentially along the south side of Hill Road, pollinator plantings on the north side of Hill Road, and natural materials along the exterior of the subdivision. Late correspondence was received from the neighbor at 8339 Hill Road with concerns about the future extension of Bismarck Street and the potential impacts to the shed circled in yellow on your screen. There was a proposed agreement attached. However, this agreement is between those 2 private property owners and not enforceable by the city or ACHD. In order to extend the roadway, a development application would have to be brought forward by those property owners, and at that time, the roadway extension would be evaluated. Additionally, a representative from ACHD is available online if there are questions. So in conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval of the annexation with a zoning designation of R1C and the preliminary plat with all original recommendations, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And for reference, these are the findings for an annexation. Subdivisions do not have separate findings.
Madam Mayor. Jesse, could you go back to the slide that shows the proposed easement north of Hill Road? Maybe one forward with a line on it. There you go. Could you talk about the future pathway plan there and how this interplays with the farmers unions canals rights, farmers unions rights along that future pathway? Like, is this easement subordinate to any rights the farmers union canal may have, or is this unrelated to their interest here?
Madam Mayor, council members, so the exact location of the pathway is not currently known because there are some of those details that would need to be worked out. There's also some topographical challenges on that lot. So having an easement for a future pathway in this lot would give us flexibility to either work with the Farmers Union Canal and put it up closer to the canal, or to have flexibility once that pathway becomes more clear on the side of Hill Road moving forward.
Madam Mayor. Hi, Jesse. Does the planning team ever, I know that I think the minimum lot size here is 3,500, and these are some much bigger than that. Do we ever encourage the applicant to align closer to that minimum, or it's just whatever goes after once they hit that minimum?
Madam Mayor, council members, well, the lot size minimum of 3,500 square feet was adopted because that was what we were seeing with PUDs under the old code as being something that was asked for on a consistent basis. However, we do have the flexibility that they can go above the minimum, and the proposal is in line with the subdivisions that are currently in the area.
Thank you. And Madam Mayor, one more question. And is part of that, I know that we talked about the topography of this space. Is that also part of the consideration, or there may be some areas that are less buildable, therefore requiring a larger lot?
Madam Mayor, council members, once you go south from Hill Road, it's fairly flat in this area. So I'm not sure if that was a consideration from the applicant, but I'm sure they'd be able to answer that.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just to be clear with you, when you said that with the original proposal is the short jog around the tree, correct?
Madam Mayor, council members, that's the applicant's proposal. Staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission did not feel like the jog was appropriate and the entire sidewalk should be detached.
Okay.
All right, we'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Austin Edwards, 3991 South Millsite Avenue in Boise. Thank you for having us here tonight. Jesse's been great to work with. She's been responsive and helped push this through in a very efficient manner to get to all of you. So we appreciate your time today. Do you have our PowerPoint? Oh, there it is. Thank you. So I'll keep some of these pretty short because Jesse did a good job kind of going through all of them, but we're requesting annexation and zoning to the R1C district in this area and a preliminary plat for single family residential subdivision. We coordinate with the city and HHD, current property owners, the Northwest Neighborhood Association over the development of this project and have incorporated a lot of their feedback into this design. And we had about 15 attendees at our neighborhood meeting this spring that we felt like went pretty well. Can I click through here? Or do you need to? There we go. As Jesse mentioned, that little red corner down there, it was an unincorporated area that didn't get annexed in with the Hill Road Parkway realignment. So we've elected to work with the city and incorporate that into our legal description for the annexation to help clean that up for the city of Boise. Here's some of the adjacent developments. As Jesse mentioned, they're all in line with what we're proposing in the R1C zone. To the east, to the west, and to the south, and then to the southwest, you have the Prominence future multifamily development. So I feel like this development's in line with what the city is asking for. It's in line with what's being built in the general area and conforms to all the requirements of the R1C zoning designation. Skip that because she already covered it. So in here we have 41 single family residential lots. One of those is the 2-acre lot on the north side of the site that's being retained. And then 40 new lots plotted within the 8 acres south of Hill Road. Here's our landscape plan. One of the requests from the Northwest Neighborhood Association was to kind of preserve the character of the Hill Road, the old Hill Road corridor. And so to do that, you have this 2 acres that's being retained. So it's a beautiful kind of farmhouse and field area, some sheds, and then we're proposing a 6-foot cedar fence along that boundary between the 2-acre parcel and our development to help kind of retain that kind of rural rustic character along that corridor before you get to the new proposed development. So I want to touch base on this tree mitigation plan a little bit, as Jesse brought up. So tree 42 is the one that was discussed with the jog sidewalk. We still would like to request that sidewalk be jogged. Reason being is, it's a beautiful old tree that was moved there many years ago. And it's a great sentimental value to the current owner of that house. We feel that jogging 30 feet of sidewalk, in the future when this 2 acres redevelops, that's a pretty simple thing to realign and straighten out is detached with that application. So there will be a chance to fix that in the future if desired. But for the time being, it preserves a beautiful large conifer tree that I'm not sure how old it is, but it's quite old. It's a very large tree. So that's one of our requests to the council, is to allow us to retain that tree and jog that sidewalk over. Some other things we did here was originally some of the trees along Hill Road were going to be removed. We worked with our landscape architect, engineer, and have proposed ways to retain all of those. So we are working to retain all the trees along Old Hill Road. And I think we have a good plan to do that. This is just showing the attached 5-foot sidewalk. We worked with planning staff quite a bit on this and decided that the 5-foot attached sidewalk was a good compromise for the pathway because of the Farmers Union Canal. That pathway is difficult to build. It's a high slope area. The Farmers Union is claiming that their easement goes to the center of Hill Road there. So that kind of warrants some larger joint effort with the city and Farmers Union when that broader pathway gets constructed. So we elected in the meantime. Originally, we had a variance to not improve Hill Road here and leave it as it is with the kind of character that Old Hill Road has there, since there's not much traffic. But to help promote pedestrian connectivity off the roadway, we proposed this 5-foot attached sidewalk, and that seemed to meet the needs of city staff and the developer.
Madam Mayor, I have a question about, is it tree 42? Is that the one in question?
Yes.
Could you identify that one?
It is. Is there a pointer on this?
Oh, I think I see it. Is it on the northwest corners? Yeah, that one right there. Do you know the age of the tree and how long it's supposed to?
I would ask.
Could you, would you come up and speak into the mic for the record? Thank you.
That tree's been on that, oh, this one's stubborn.
You can pull it down.
So that tree's been on that property for over 30 years. It was moved from my grandparents' property, which is where Magnolia Park is.
And do we have any idea how long, like if we're gonna build a permanent sidewalk around it, like if that's being proposed, is this tree gonna live 10 more years, 50 more years? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Trees all have a lifespan. It's very, very healthy. So it could,
All right. It's a spruce tree, right?
yes.
A long time.
Like 100 years.
Plus it blocks the junkie neighbor across the street.
You didn't want that in the mic?
Madam Mayor, since we're on a break for this question right now, so what I'm hearing you say is that you would be supportive of us approving the original application, but would also be open to a condition that if the tree was ever torn down for future development, that the sidewalk would be reconstructed as a detached sidewalk at that point.
Yes, I believe in the future with the 2 acres, when it develops in the future, there would be the chance there for the city to require that improvement to be made to the sidewalk.
Yep. And then if they didn't want to have to repair that sidewalk, then they'd have to leave that tree.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything further?
I did have one other item. Let's go. Oops, I'm going backwards. Oh, there's that tree. So the one on the left. It's a beautiful large spruce tree. It's been trimmed up a bit now. It's an older photo, but so we are in agreement with most of the conditions. The one I wanted to address right now is site-specific condition number 4. And I'm asking for one of 2 things to occur there. So right now the city in their conditions has required this stub to the north to be installed in alignment with Spitfire Avenue. So the first request is to not require this stub. We think that with the topography of that 2-acre parcel to the north, it's a difficult alignment to make, especially tying into Old Hill Road north with the topography and side distance and curvature of the roadway. So we would first request that condition be removed. If that condition cannot be removed, in order to allow some more flexibility, we would like the condition to be rewritten so it can either be located north of Spitfire Avenue as an extension, or north of, I can't read that street name, Green Oaks Avenue, which is just the other north-south road to the west, to allow some flexibility on how that's going to get oriented to be more efficient with lot layouts. That's all I have. I'll stand for
Great,
questions.
thanks. Any further questions for the applicant?
Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
can you, thanks so much for the presentation. Can I have you go back to the previous slide and talk again about that street connection?
Yes.
So on condition number 4, so we're looking to, so it looks like it's aligned right now with Spitfire Avenue, is that the right name? But we want to look to moving that to the left or the right?
I want to, just with the language of the condition, it specifically states Spitfire. So I don't want to run into an issue there during development and construction documents, or that's the only place we can align it if it fits better servicing the north parcel in alignment with Green Oaks Avenue instead. So I just want that flexibility and not be tied to just the technical language of the condition if we're required to have that on our stub street.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Hey, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you incorporated neighborhood feedback. There was a couple of things that Jessie had put in her presentation that seemed like the neighborhood still wanted, and I just want to get clarification on that.
Mm-hmm. So the main one was with the Northwest Neighborhood Association, Richard Llewellyn. We worked with them quite a bit, and that came with the character of the 2-acre parcel and the fence. So the main one that we incorporated was changing fence type along that boundary
To the natural.
to the natural more cedar fence instead of vinyl. Some of the other questions from neighbors were, pass through traffic to existing subdivisions because we're tying in other stub streets. There's not a lot we can do to accommodate that. So really the main one was the fence.
And then I think there was one on the previous slide about natural landscaping. Was
Natural
that,
landscaping?
Yeah. Does
Oh,
that mean it? Does that ring a bell?
we incorporate landscaping per the requirements of the city of Boise. Looks like Jesse has a comment.
Madam Mayor, councilors, just to clarify, the Northwest Neighborhood Association did ask for more class 3 trees to be incorporated and for pollinator landscaping to be incorporated in that non-buildable lot on the north side of Hill Road.
I believe that is one of the conditions of approval is class 3 trees, correct?
Madam Mayor, councilors, the condition of approval was for class 3 trees, I believe, on the perimeter, which I think was met with the updated landscape plan that was submitted.
Pollinators, what do you think?
I'm not sure what that would look like.
Yes. Will you repeat
Madam
the
Mayor.
question?
Yeah. So one of the things that Jesse just talked about was the having pollinator kind of plants that as part of national landscape. Is that part of the plan?
I don't believe so right now, but I can't imagine that'd be difficult to incorporate into the plant schedule, some pollinators. So I think we could be amenable to that.
I can do it in my garden, so
Yeah.
it's pretty easy.
Yeah, not a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah, just I think along that line, our city's tree guide for when you're planting, you're selecting your trees, has a pollinator friendly tree guide. And there's actually a requirement that 1/3 of the trees be pollinator friendly trees. And so really what all you have to do is as you're going through the tree guide and selecting the trees that are to be planted, making sure that there's an extra pollinator, here and there within that selection guide. But yeah, there's actually a requirement that requires, 33 or 1/3 of your trees, 33% be pollinator friendly. So if you want to go a little bit extra, you could make it even be a half or a little bit more for there, but they're all in the tree guide with the pollinator friendly symbol.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to hear from the public now. Thank you. So I've got Greg Olson. Anybody else planning on testifying on this? Nope. Okay.
Madam Mayor, Council, thanks for having me here. I have some images I think that are a little bit more illustrative than some of the overheads that we've seen. So I'm wondering if I should help her find them. Yeah, those 4. So start on the second one. Okay. So if you look on these images, the present path of Bismarck Street travels through my neighbor's pool and would take the north wall of their house off. goes through and would remove my shop entirely, goes through my neighbor to the west's horse pasture, and goes through the entire residence before it intersects with the next road that would effectively give you an out. If you go to the next image,
I'm going to ask you to move them yourself.
oh, sure.
There's a
All right.
clicker.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, they're just separate images. So I made a couple of separate images that might suggest various ways. Also, I want to stress, I spoke at length with the company that's doing this subdivision, and they were the nicest. We talked a lot about all of these things and their concerns and their costs. But I think this is an important enough change that building the road as it is presently directed would cause a lot of future headache and cost. This is probably the least effective, but yet still possibly effective way to route the road, where you bend it as soon as it makes the next property. And then it misses most everybody's structures, but that's a pretty substantial bend. If you go to the next image down, yes. If you angle the road at the intersection, the problem for the builder is they probably lose one property. But that effectively gives the road a pathway through everybody, allows future development, doesn't go through anybody's pool, and really kind of takes care of everybody, where you still have the ability to subdevelop the fields to the east pretty easily. And I would suggest that Bismarck, as it is presently directed, the other thing that this overhead doesn't really show you well is the canal itself is anywhere from 5 to more than 20 feet above Hill Road. The slope gets substantial as you go to the north side of that property. There's already leaks at various points on that canal. If you start trying to dig into that canal to build a pathway, I can see why they want to put the pathway on the south side of Hill Road. It would be difficult. But that's kind of the same with all of these properties. The reason those outbuildings are adjacent to those houses are because the property becomes substantially sloped as soon as you get into where all those buildings are, immediately north of the red lines that I've drawn. Basically, I appreciate the builders need to get as many houses as they can in here, but I think this would be something to consider because it would save future cost.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Greg, could you help me understand the anxiety about a future road if you as a property owner aren't intending on developing your property?
Oh, my wife and I, Charlotte here, we very much bought this so that we would very much intend to add potentially 3 houses. My neighbor as well, Karen Sabernagel, has talked much about the reason they purchased that land was to subdevelop it at some point. Now we're talking some point in the future, could be years, because it'll take at least a year or 2 for this present development to happen and that stub road. But realistically, the present direction of Bismarck, regardless of anybody's future plans, would make it difficult for anything in those fields to get subdeveloped.
Madam Mayor, Greg, what do you understand if were you to subdivide your property? What is your understanding of your legal duties to put a road in here? Should we?
I'm familiar with if I personally was the one to subdivide it versus selling it to somebody else and having them do it, somebody that does this for a living. I would be responsible for the costs of that road. And it would need to have sewer, water, and electric built into the road, which in the long run, well, I'd have to deal with all of those things. And my neighbor is also aware of those costs. In fact, from my perspective, having a road and a subdivision in that field would actually be helpful. And putting a hammerhead turnaround until the road goes all the way through would actually be desirable for me. It would give me better access to my land. And putting in 3 houses that would be lined up with the subdivision to the south of us would actually be beneficial. So I don't have a problem with subdividing, and that was our original intent when we bought it.
Madam Mayor. So in your property is the first property, is that right? Adjacent to the
The
development?
second one. So the one
The
with
second-
the
okay.
red dot on it
Got it,
is
okay.
my property.
So if your neighbors are also interested in subdividing, to me, this looks like, I mean, I don't know the size of those lots, but it looks like actually particularly to the for your neighbor to the east, that perhaps it is then a subpar lot standard size.
So I don't know any of the details on that.
So-
What I know is my field is 3/4 of an acre.
Sure. So what
Yeah.
I'm saying is I think off the top of my head, it makes it look like this road would actually prohibit your neighbors from subdividing because it's it's kind of killing all of that property to the south of the road.
My property, for example, even with the road, is still 3/4 of an acre. So we could do 3 quarter-acre lots.
I understand that. Okay. Thank you, Greg.
Madam Mayor, did you play around with road formats that weren't straight lines? So coming out, jogging, and trying to maintain even splits so that you have enough property south of the future road to develop?
I'd like
yeah.
to kind of pull us back in here because it's
'Cause no, I
ACHD.
don't see that as
Excuse me,
my
sir.
responsibility.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
I'd like to pull us back in here because ACHD would need to be involved with roads versus
Yeah.
computer generated lines on a map. We're talking about, we heard your concerns. We're looking at another parcel and application that we need to be focused on.
Madam Mayor, if we could to try to resolve this, could we bring Edison on to answer whether the decision we're making tonight, it's my understanding that some of these decisions will not be controlling on future development here, and that some of these decisions could be made at the time that another application comes before us that deals with the subject properties that Mr. Olson's referring to. So if we could just have Mr. Edinson confirm that, I think that would be helpful.
Madam Mayor, President Nash, certainly that's considering that we haven't seen a development for those 2 properties at the time of that happening. ACHD would work with the developer of those 2 properties to find a good solution to avoid impacts to their property of however they desire. But at this time, it's hard to know without having a plat to review or design specifically for those 2 properties. So yes.
So Edinson, just to clarify, is there anything we're doing with this application tonight if it's approved as is, or that would be binding on these other properties to the east of there?
Certainly, there's a condition that with the current property and the current alignment that dictates sort of how the alignment might go, but certainly there's going to be alternatives to as soon as those other 2 properties present their preliminary plat for ACHD to review and find other alternatives and not necessarily just a straight road. Especially with a local street, that's something that can be reviewed more with more flexibility, I think. But that's something that our development services would have to review more in detail in coordination with those developers.
Thank you, Edinson.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council.
Is there anybody else to testify on this? All right, do we have further questions for staff?
Madam Mayor, I've got a question for staff.
Great.
So the developer asked us about some flexibility and condition for allowing the stub street to potentially be an option of either extending off of Spitfire or extending off of Green Oaks. And I'm just wondering if that's something that staff has looked into, if there's been any discussions, if there's any concerns around that.
Madam Mayor, councilors, let me pull up condition 4 so I can make sure that I'm speaking correctly.
There it is.
Madam Mayor, councilors, so currently condition 4 reads that the roadway connection must be stubbed to the north, extending the proposed Spitfire Avenue. I think generally the planning team is supportive of any kind of potential connectivity to the north. So if that is in a different location, I think that would serve its purpose. However, we'd have to get comments from ACHD to make sure that any alternative location was viable.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have one more question for staff too. In regards to the sidewalk question that's been going around, I think it's staff and the planning commission that suggested removing that as a condition to preserve the tree. Is that right? And I guess first, am I understanding that correctly? Staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission are not supportive of jogging the sidewalk and preserving the tree.
Madam Mayor, council member, that's correct.
Okay, and thanks, Jesse. Sorry, that was a roundabout question. But so it's my understanding, I'm leaning towards supporting that because it's my understanding that meandering sidewalks or a sidewalk with a jog as is presented here presents mobility issues or can present issues for folks with mobility issues or sight impairments and things like that. Is that part of the staff's recommendation to keep that in mind in a sidewalk that may very well long outlast a tree?
Madam Mayor, council members, that's the general line of thinking, is that we typically do not support meandering sidewalks because of mobility issues. And it just provides consistency for, the variety of users of that pedestrian space.
Thanks, Jesse.
Further questions for staff? All right, thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve CAR 25-10, annexation of approximately 11.9 acres at 8750 North Bogart Lane and subdivision 2525, Meadow Crest Heights subdivision. Also at 8750 North Bogart Lane, a preliminary plat for residential subdivision comprised of 41 buildable units and 8 common lots on 10.22 acres with a couple of conditions. One is an amendment to condition 4 to allow the stub street to exist on Green Oaks or Spitfire pending ACHD approval. The second would be to allow them to jog the sidewalk out for approximately 30 feet with the condition that if there were future construction and the tree was to be torn down, that they would need to fix that section and reconstruct it as a detached sidewalk.
Second.
We have a motion, second discussion.
Madam Mayor, I do think this is a great development. I do think that there's a little bit of sticking point on this tree, and it's come up on a few different city council meetings before. And we have instructed staff before to get creative if there are ways for us to save tree canopy. I know that this isn't actually like a canopy tree. This is like a big spruce tree, but it's also something that provides shade and shelter for wildlife and habitat in an area where there actually aren't a lot of mature trees. When we were talking about our heat island effect earlier today, Northwest Boise was one of the major areas where we had that. And while I do think it's more ideal to have a straight sidewalk that goes all the way through, I also know that if I'm walking on the sidewalk, I'd rather walk by a tree than a bare lot. And I'd rather stand in the shade of a tree than not have any shade. And if I'm the resident of that house and it's 7 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to want to have the shade of the tree over there as well. So if we can do things to preserve the shade canopy now for a short section at the end of a road that's not very busy, it's not a through street really where there's a whole ton of traffic. It's at the very, very end of Bogart Lane. To me, this is a small sacrifice that if it does get taken down in the future with development, can be fixed. Other than that, I appreciate the work that's been done on this. I understand the concern from the neighbor. We've approved a lot of stub streets on city council, and it's funny, sometimes we'll get a development that actually required a stub street decades and decades ago. And finally, the stub street got punched through to connect to the other side. And in that development application, whoever that property is next to it really has a lot of flexibility to figure out how that stub street is going to go. It might not be a straight line, it might be a curved line, it might be an S line. It's that developer who's on that second side. And I guess my encouragement, to the property owners next door would be, if you're going to try to subdivide, have a conversation, try to subdivide at the same time, and you might be able to figure out a really nice solution to kind of address that pattern there. But appreciate this coming forward. Yeah, appreciate the work with us on trying to navigate some things as far as concerns that go with the neighborhood, and emphasizing the addition of those pollinator-friendly trees through that city tree guide.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I'd like to support the motion. A couple of things. I think it's a practical solution, and I appreciate Councilmember Halliburton bringing it forward. Two things. It's not the first time that we've had to do some creative thinking on this, and it won't be the last. You have me at sentimentality when it comes to your grandparents, but even more than that, and I should say, in addition to that, it's 91 degrees outside. I know what it's like to have shade, and it's something that I think is important. We live in a desert. If we can preserve this as much as possible, we need to, in terms of the canopy. And I like the idea that, if something happens, we can fix it. This isn't something that's insurmountable to fix. So I think it's a great compromise. I think we've listened to the property owner and also, just found something that I think is good for the neighborhood. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Oh, Madam Mayor, I'm not going to be supporting the motion. It seems, I guess, pouring concrete with the expectation that it's temporary is difficult for me to wrap my mind around. And I know that I have approved meandering sidewalks from this seat in the past, but from what I've learned since is the hardship and the dangers that it presents for people with mobility or mobility issues or sight impairments. I want to approve development that lasts for generations and is as safe as it can be for our residents. And I would have preferred that we see maybe the additional requirement of that pollinator garden or of some additional trees rather than this, what sounds like a bit of a temporary solution that will be pouring concrete maybe twice, maybe to save a tree.
All right, Clerk. Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
No.
Willard.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Take a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.